Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast, Women's College Gymnastics Edition. Today, we are here at the end of the year. The national championships have concluded, so we're here to recap that, give our thoughts, and then just close out the season. So we have the college gymnastics expert, Miss Dr. Sarah Bogan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. This was a very exciting postseason, and I'm very excited to talk about it. My bracket was busted like everyone else's, but it was busted in the best ways.
Well, let's talk. Let's just go right into it, Sarah. What were the best ways that your bracket was busted? What things happened that you did not expect?
Well, I mean, the unexpected thing for everyone, I think, was the Cinderella run of Minnesota making it all the way to the Final Four for the first time in history. They've never been in a final, even, prior to the Final Four when it was the Final Six, the Super Six, as they called it.
Mhm.
They've never made it to a national final. So not only was this their first national final, but they also made history as the lowest ranked team to make it to the Final Four. So they entered the postseason as the number 13 seed based on national qualifying score. And so they had to upset, just going back to the regional finals. They were in that regional final that I had slated as being one of the toughest ones to make out of. So that was the one with UCLA, Utah, Alabama, and Minnesota. And kind of the talk of me, certainly, and all of most of the outlets that cover it, they were kind of talking. The question out of that was like, oh no, who of Utah, Alabama, and UCLA is going to make it out?
Yep.
Because those are three world-class teams, and Minnesota was like, you know what, we're going to do this. So Bama faltered. Utah had a really tough meet. But above and beyond that, Minnesota brought the heat. Like they were performing at their highest level that they had all season. They absolutely earned their way into the national championship, even just the Elite Eight, to make it out of regionals and make it to nationals to begin with. That was just incredible. That regional final, they were actually leading at one point, and they were in the top two pretty much the whole way through. Like it was not like just fluke Utah filtered. They went through. It was they earned every step of the way. So then, we get to semifinal two, Oklahoma, Arkansas, UCLA, Minnesota. Everyone's kind of talking again, like, this is amazing. Like, Minnesota had this Cinderella thing happen. They made it to nationals. This is amazing for them. And in the middle of the semifinal, suddenly it became clear that Minnesota is going to do this. They are going to upset, I guess, Arkansas. They're going to upset UCLA, which is the big one, and they're going to make it all the way to the final. And that was a very, very exciting thing for Big Ten fans to watch, Minnesota fans to watch, certainly. But there were a lot of people just across the gymternet really, really excited for Minnesota to, meet this milestone and do this thing. Because we're all used to seeing these same usual suspects in the Final Four all the time. And to see something like this happen to a place like a school like Minnesota that so clearly performed in a way that they deserved it. It brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
So are they the lowest seed to ever make a Final Four?
Yes,
Yeah, I would assume
ever.
13th is crazy in a sense. And it's funny too because I only thought like out of the teams, I only thought the only Big Ten upset would have been Ohio State making out of that first thing because I had them.
Which they did.
They did. I
Which
had
they
that. That
did.
was a homer pick, but then obviously Minnesota doing the unthinkable, making it to the Final Four from their side, and technically ending, ending UCLA season, which then in turn ended Jordan Childs' college career.
Hmm.
So that's obviously a big story that we didn't get to see her. Well, see UCLA as a team up there trying one more chance to win the title because that was them in Florida were basically like the heart picks for me because I felt like they're both been knocking, but then Minnesota did that. So I would guess with Minnesota, 13th seed, I could probably guarantee they're definitely not at the top at like NIL or of
Mm-mm.
like obviously of like superstar talent or things like that. So Sarah, what's them making it to the Final Four? What does it tell the other teams in the country?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think, well, first of all, like Minnesota does have some incredible gymnasts. So they actually have a couple of international elites on their team. So like Ava Stewart was like a really big Canadian gymnast. They have some other international gymnasts from Ireland, and I think a couple Canadians. So they have top talent for sure. Um, I think what it tells other teams is that the talent is high across the board and teams can still contend. Like you don't have to be a national championship team. Nobody's entitled. Like
Hmm.
nobody is entitled to make it to the Final Four just because they're ranked high. And they do have to deliver on the day, and they do need to make it through. And I think it also kind of importantly shows, athletic departments across the country and fan bases and stuff and even like other schools that are kind of like knocking at the door that it's possible, like they're not, it's not necessarily that you have to resign to just being like, okay, we're a regional level team, we can never make it all the way to the Final Four, but it is possible if you show up on the day and do it well. I'm hopeful that that is the message that's taken from this, because I think the sport as a whole is stronger when more teams are contending and can reasonably contend. And it's also healthier for the sport as well because it brings in fans that, wouldn't necessarily watch. I know that there were sports bars full of people in Minneapolis who got together to watch this gymnastics team compete in the championship. And let me tell you, after the year that the city of Minneapolis has had so far, like any positivity is a good thing for that city. So yeah, I think it shows athletic departments what's possible when you're willing to invest. It shows gymnasts and teams what is possible if they're willing to believe. And it just kind of puts everybody on notice. And I think it's going to be a good thing moving forward for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I would say with a thing like Minnesota and with any team that is an underdog and galvanizing like the city and whatnot. And obviously, you had, in any case with sports, you have the diehards who were going to watch Minnesota regardless. And then when they got out of the first round to then the regional final, they're just like, oh, okay, we're still in. Diehards are watching. Then you get more and more casuals coming in, like, oh, okay, my school or whatever is in it, might watch it. And then when they go from that to the semifinal, and they're like, oh, we're still in it, the more diehards come in, like you said, then the bar starts showing it because it's like, hey, we've made it this far. No one thought we would, and we can make it to a Final Four. And then when you go from that to a Final Four, then the whole city's on board. You got like the school saying X day is Minnesota Day so that everyone can watch. You got bars having making sure it's on there. You got the mayors and all that talking about it. So then now it's on the news more frequently. So now anyone who hasn't watched is like, oh, Minnesota's in the Final Four with a chance to do the improbable and win a national championship. I'm gonna tune in. I'm gonna watch. So like you said, this magical run to the Final Four just created thousands upon millions of new fans of women's gymnastics, not just definitely in Minnesota, but across the country.
For sure. And internationally, I think we can talk about this a little bit now with the controversy and the criticism. I won't say controversy. I don't think it's controversial. I think
Hmm.
there has been, I think, valid criticism that, not everybody agrees with, but
We'll go right ahead.
all these people tune in and The Final Four is broadcast on ABC rather than I think ESPN2 or ESPN Plus, which the previous rounds are on. So
Hmm.
in previous rounds and like most meets throughout the season, and all of regionals, and I think like most of national semifinals as well. They use what's called a double duel format where they ran the meet so that only two events go at once, and then the broadcast used a split screen format,
Hmm.
so they were able to show all of the routines.
Hmm.
Um, but we see this in NBC as well with like the Olympic coverage of Olympic gymnastics.
Hmm.
Typically, like the Peacock and like kind of background coverage of gymnastics is more comprehensive. And then when
Hmm.
it moves to main NBC, there's a whole lot more fluff. There's a whole lot more like only showing the gymnasts that they assume the audience is going to care about. And that kind of happened here. So somebody did a breakdown. I think in all of the Final Four on ABC, I think only 60% of Minnesota's routines were shown.
Hmm.
So they didn't make use, I think they only made use of split screen a couple of times,
Hmm.
and they did not show every single routine. The commentators did say, kind of like rotation two, one of the commentators, John Roethlisberger, kind of brought up like, oh yeah, like if you want to see every routine, like you don't complain you can't see every routine, like you can go online and watch on ESPN Plus. Um, Watch what's going on there. You can see every routine if you want, but um, I don't think, and I don't think in an era where it's possible to run a meet and show a meet where all routines are shown. And certainly in the spirit of like honoring the teams to make it, honoring the teams and respecting the teams that made it by showing their gymnastics. And then also like just practically, we had this amazing fan base. Like people were excited, people all over the world, in Europe who are Minnesota alumni
Hmm.
tuned in to watch this meet because they were so excited about what Minnesota had accomplished.
Yeah.
And then to be told by the broadcast, oh, sorry, if you want to see your team, you need to go and watch the ESPN coverage on the app. Like, what are you going to tell like a sports bar full of people that got together to watch this together in Minneapolis? Are you going to tell them, oh, got to tell the bartender to like go and like find a bunch of iPads for us? Like,
Well, I would
it just
say now, I don't want to say it's making women's gymnastics more mainstream, but for them to have that problem is a mainstream problem.
mm,
Because now with everyone and their mother wanting to sell the rights or whatever their sports to the apps so that they can get that revenue and all of that, which is hindering some bars because then it's like now you got to try and get a certain like you got to get the app, you got to get a login, you got to pay for that. And if you don't have that, then you can't show that's worth. And bars when they're showing sports events and all of that, they don't want to have to log in and out of an app. They want to
right.
be able to have every sport that's on at that day on a big TV with like 50 different like split squares. And that's the bar watching experience. So the apps are kind of messing that up. So now
Mm,
the fact that, like you said, with like Minnesota and like people who are like, oh, let's go to the bars and watch. Like, if your bar doesn't have the ESPN app, you're out of luck. Which was the unfortunate thing. And I think as a $1 billion company, they could have seized the moment and altered how they presented the coverage. But I would say for the people too, with like this championship in the semifinal, ESPN had a lot going on.
mm,
Um, During the 16th and 18th, well, let's just talk about the 18th, Final Four with ABC. The NBA playoffs were going on, which some of their games were on ESPN, some were on Peacock, whatnot. ESPN has their deal with WWE. WrestleMania was that weekend as well, so you're spread on that. That was exclusively on the app, and they did the first hour free on ESPN. So I would say that weekend was very jam-packed for ESPN. Not saying they could have done better because they could have done better, but I just wonder if let's say the championship was this weekend, would it have been different?
mm.
Or if it was a weekend before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like another thing that happened was the UFL was having
Yep.
its
Yep.
pregame stuff, and one of their games actually bled over. So there was supposed to be
Hmm.
a pre-show on ABC prior
Hmm.
to the preview show prior to this championship. And about half of that time slot was covered up by UFL because there's just a lot going on. But I think like that could potentially be part of it. But I think another part of it is kind of this broader question because ESPN did respond and ABC did respond to the
Hmm.
criticism. And it was really similar to like the criticism that NBC has gotten for Olympic coverage because like there's all this history of NBC like showing Simone Biles getting her ankles taped or showing Gabby Douglas like drinking water in a corner when like clearly she had just fallen and didn't want to talk to anybody while there were other gymnasts going and they
Yep.
could have shown. But the argument always made by these broadcasters and these broadcast companies is like, oh, well, we're not catering to like the diehard fans. We're catering, especially on these network outlets, ABC, NBC, we're catering to the casual fan. And
Hmm.
we want to make it approachable to the casual fan.
Hmm.
So the problem I have with that is, first of all, you got a whole city full, a whole twin cities full of new casual fans at your fingertips that you could be bringing in by showing their team in an equitable way using technology that has been used throughout the rest of the season. And then, second of all, like, why are we assuming that casual fans can't understand gymnastics? Like, I'm a
Hmm.
casual, like, I could be a casual football fan. If I turn on a football game, I'm not expecting it to be dumbed down for me. Like, I'm
Hmm.
expecting if I tune in that I'm going to see the full game. And so that's just kind of the beef I have with this. It's like you're assuming your audience isn't going to understand and isn't going to be able to keep up with everything. But I'm not seeing the argument.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, in that way, with being in those rooms and like you brought up the Gabby stuff or like Simone like drinking the water, then they feel like that's the best way to their product because those are like the most known people. And that goes back to what I previously said. Like, if Minnesota had Jordan Childs on their team, this would not even be a conversation.
Absolutely.
Like, if you had one of those like big names, they would have been watching Minnesota tape themselves up too. So it's also one of those things too where like when the networks and all that, when they get to this point and we do have a Cinderella, and let's just be honest, the networks weren't like thinking Minnesota was going to be here. They didn't.
We
So
did.
it's like they do all their work to like research everything about UCLA because that's what's expected to be there. I even know I mean, you talked about even Alabama, like doing research there, but it's like, dang, Minnesota, now we have a week to try and learn everything about them. We haven't watched one single meet until it was on our stations. And they're just like, well, people care about the LSUs, the Floridas, the Oklahoma. We could just sprinkle in Minnesota and they'll be happy. And obviously, people were not.
Mhm. So, I
So,
mean, it makes me kind of curious of like, I mean, like, there have been Cinderellas in like March Madness. There have been
hmm.
Cinderellas in, a lot of other sports.
Hmm.
And how do the broadcast networks and um, how do the broadcast networks and commentators tend to handle those sorts of stories?
I would say with especially March Madness, the brackets, it's a lot easier because all of the games individually are on a separate like thing.
Hmm.
Like there's not like if there's a game going on like the men's, for example, they have the thing with TBS, CBS, TNT, and then there's one other one, and True TV. So like if one game's on True, the other game's on that, so then you have their pregame people talking about just that specific game. So then like you have more exposure, and obviously you can go on the app and then you can watch all four. And I would also say too, like gymnastics is one of those is a unique Final Four because all four teams are participating to win the national championship. Now, if it was like the men and women's basketball tournament, and let's just say it was split, Like, so it's LSU versus Florida to get to the national championship. Minnesota versus Oklahoma, I think coverage would be significantly different and better because then you could individual like focus on that specific meet. So then, like, just think about if it was in that sense, Minnesota, the upstart team of the history, going against the Goliath Oklahoma with a spot to get at the national championship. That's the type of thing ESPN would have like ate up. But since it's all four at the same time, they're just like, oh, well, Minnesota's going to lose and adding that. Now, if Minnesota would have won somehow, they would have made up some BS thing about overcoming the odds and this and that, like just out of nowhere. But I don't think they were expecting them to win, so they just threw them on the wayside.
Yeah, but I think like, and especially for I think another point is like, especially for a sport like gymnastics and like a sport like figure skating, like the performance is a part of the watching experience for
Hmm.
fans. Like people don't necessarily tune in to watch gymnastics just to watch the people who win.
Yeah,
Like, so like I don't think not expecting a team to win is a reason to not show their routines either.
it's not, but it's something they would be talking about internally. I think from what I said earlier about them just being so busy with all the different things, what I would have done if we're going to do equal stuff, this is what I would have done. I would have had the main coverage on ABC, and then I would have used like the sister networks that are on TV to like if you only want to watch one specific team. I would have tried to keep it off the apps,
Mm,
by all means, or even just so let's ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. So let's just say ABC has the whole thing, like the four, and then ESPN has two teams. So that way you can more focus on those two teams, and ESPN has the other two teams, so you can focus more on that. I think that's how they should have done it.
mm.
But if they
Yeah.
want this type of thing, it's also making sure that your stuff isn't coinciding with other stuff. So, but me personally, that's how you. And then if you go on the app, so that's what I would do. So ABC 4, ESPN 2, ESPN regular 2, and then the app, you can just click on which specific team you want to watch. That's a luxury thing.
Hmm. And I think what I would do is I would use the split screen and just show all the routines and only
Hmm.
run two routines at once. Because I think that worked fine for most of the season. It's just I
Hmm.
don't think move just because you move to ABC, I don't think you need to suddenly change the way you lay it out because you think casual fans can't handle it.
All right.
Like I almost would rather see like every routine in kind of the split screen, like not too crazy, like two routines at once isn't tough to watch, you know? And a lot of times, you know, when vault and floor are going at the same time, vault happens really quickly. And then you go and the floor routine, which is kind of the most important thing to see full screen, is able to go to full screen. You can enjoy the full performance.
All right.
Um, I would do that on the main feed. And then maybe if people just want an option to watch just one routine at a time and but still kind of get an overall viewpoint and story of what's going on, maybe that should be on the app.
Yeah. I think both ideas are fine. It's just a matter of now with this experience, this will be something like ESPN will have to think about next year
Hmm.
going forward with the dates of this and how they want to do their coverage. So, but with Minnesota too, we got to the Final Four. Oklahoma, LSU, Florida, Minnesota.
Hmm.
Um, Sarah, to no surprise to most, Oklahoma won again,
They did.
back to back once again, and then there was something that I had about them going back. All right, back to back national champs. Four out of the last five national
Mhm.
championships. Obviously, LSU got theirs. And then eight of the last 12.
Which is madness. Like that's
Yes.
madness.
Yeah. What are
Um,
your thoughts on hearing those stats about Oklahoma and especially the eight out of the last 12? Because it's not like these are new girls coming in. Like, It's not like
Yeah,
this is the same
and
team. It's
and it's a young team.
hmm
The team is mostly freshmen and sophomores this year. Like there are only, I think, only about two seniors on the team.
hmm
But yeah, it's a young team. Like one of the big stories last year was, is this insanely young Oklahoma team going to pull it out, and like can they win? And they did. And again, this is a really young team. They're still very green. You
hmm
still see them, like the pressure gets to them sometimes. I think at this point, like when we do the brackets, we talk about this every year, how I cannot bet against Oklahoma, because they've proven themselves to me too many times, and one too many times for me not to believe in KJ Kindler's coaching and just the machine that they built there and the resources that that program has. So like, I don't know if I've brought this up to you before, Martin, but like every gymnast on that team gets a full body massage after every practice.
Oh,
Like the resources that they have to be the best athletes they can be at Oklahoma are it's just that good. Because KJ and her team have done a great job advocating for that and building that. Interestingly enough, KJ Kindler used to be at Iowa State, and she left Iowa State because Iowa State, one of the reasons was Iowa State would not give the gymnastics program the resources it needed. And we saw how that all panned out this year. But I digress. I think, yeah, to answer your question, it Oklahoma didn't surprise me. Um, what I loved to see, like I already believed in them as like they're an unprecedented dynasty. They're not gonna go anywhere. I don't think any other like stat or um next, number of championships they've won. I don't think it's going to change things because I'm already there for them. I'm behind them
mhm.
100%. They're a dynasty, like
Oh yeah,
full stop.
easily.
What impressed me about Oklahoma this year is the way they fought back. Like I think a couple years ago, the year that they didn't make it to the nationals because they had, I think four uncharacteristic falls in the semifinal and didn't even make it. That was a year when they were like so dominant and didn't have any adversity throughout the
Yep.
season, and
Yep.
then they crumbled under the pressure. Um, but this was a team that, we saw this with them last year too. Like they had adversity, like they lost SECs. They have yet to win an SEC championship,
Which is crazy.
which is nuts. It's wild, but they do know what it's like to lose. They know what it's like to make mistakes, and they know what it's like to bounce back.
Right.
And we saw that in the final. So,
Right.
one of the things in the semifinal that like was magic was they had a magical vault rotation.
hmm
They stuck cold like four vaults in a row out of the six, and it was amazing. Started on vault in the final. It wasn't awesome. It was still great because it's Oklahoma, but it wasn't lights out. So it's like maybe Oklahoma isn't quite on their game. And then they had a mess up, misconnection, low, like 9.7 score to start off their beam rotation. They had a fall, so they knew they had to drop that fall. And then the rest of the lineup stepped up and were perfect under pressure. And that kept them neck and neck with LSU. And that allowed them to go to floor and, take the title. They earned it absolutely. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, Oklahoma is amazing, but it's not like I'm enjoying watching them now in a way I didn't enjoy watching them a couple years ago because it's clear that they are earning it. And
hmm
some of that could be like they're young, some of that could be that LSU is just so good. Like these other teams are putting pressure and like figuring things out and like putting pressure on Oklahoma. And being able to watch Oklahoma um, respond to adversity and respond to pressure in the way that they do, and the way that they did in this national championship just gives me even more respect for KJ as a coach and for them as athletes and for, just the dynasty of Oklahoma gymnastics to continue. So um, it was a very enjoyable final for me to watch.
Yeah, I would just say was I really don't have much to add on that. I would say that now in these past couple years that Oklahoma has the fear of losing in their hearts and also have lost. Like you said, like they haven't won the SEC championship thing. I mean, the teams that are beating them are the other teams that are on the other side with LSU and Florida. And if you know that if you don't bring a particular style or you're not on your P's and Q's, you're going to lose to one of those teams because you just lost to them a couple weeks ago. And
Mhm.
you know they are itching to beat you. And so I think ever since that loss of them not making it to the national championship, I think that's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to them with
Oh, for sure.
hindsight,
For
which is
sure.
crazy. I would also talk about KJ, and you just brought up how, you know, Iowa State or whatever didn't pay. I mean, didn't fully invest into the program. Do you know how much he's getting paid?
KJ Kindler?
Hmm.
Yes, so I do not know off the top of my head, but College Gym News actually has a college coach salary of database.
Hmm.
So we can look it up together right now.
Cool. That's just for my next statement I was gonna say.
It's definitely up there. I think the highest paid, oh, don't quote me on it. For some reason, I thought the highest paid coach in the NCAA for a while was Bev at Michigan.
Hmm.
But let me check. Okay. Okay. No, the highest paid coach in the NCAA is you want to guess who?
Well,
And he, yeah, negotiated for a very big raise a couple of years ago.
if it's not KJ, because you said yes, so it has to be someone outside of the realm. Who is it?
Yes, Jay Clark from LSU. So a couple years ago, he his base salary is $400,000 a year at LSU, and then has like additional postseason incentives. He gets
Incentives.
$25,000 bonus. They win SECs.
Okay.
Yeah, different things like that. But yeah, so KJ looks like she is okay. She is coming in third at 280,000.
Who's second?
Second is another one that
Is it Florida's coach?
makes sense. No, actually, it's a newer NCAA coach who has a very important elite pedigree. It is
Is Georgia's?
yeah, Cecile Landy at Georgia. So yeah, she makes 340,000 a year.
Okay. So obviously KJ really likes being in Oklahoma because if I'm her agent, I'm not having anyone make more than me, obviously, because I have the rings to show for it. So my next thing is that let's just say hypothetical. Because they went to the Final Four and they maybe feel like if Minnesota offered KJ $600,000, do you think she would take the job?
If if Minnesota offered KJ that much money, I don't think Minnesota would.
I'm just saying if they did. Reason being is because they made the Final Four. Now they're like, oh, we're missing one more thing. And they're like, we need KJ,
I
and they
think
offered 600,000. This is just for any school. Like if any school outside of like LSU, Florida, whatever. Like, do you think she would leave for like 600,000 plus, or do you think she is truly content there?
that's a good question. Well, I don't know if KJ Kindler can ever be content.
Okay.
But I think, okay, so what I think would happen is I think KJ would entertain other offers so that she could go back to Oklahoma and say, hey, I'm being poached. You need to pay me more. And I think Oklahoma would pony up and keep her. I think Oklahoma wants to keep her as long as possible and will pay what they need to. Um, so yeah, I think it would be difficult to poach KJ.
Now, can Oklahoma, the school, afford that, or would that have to be like in all the other sports? That have to be some NIL donors, board of
Ah.
trustees having to pay or help for that? Because from a resource standpoint, because where I'm at, I mean, if Ohio State wanted to, I mean, they could pony up that money. I
Hmm.
just don't feel like they would put that, fortunately, for the gymnast. But if they had a very wealthy donor who absolutely loves gymnastics and they're like, we'll give you $1 million just to use to go get KJ, I think they would do it. So I just
Huh.
wonder what is her, because now she's winning all these titles. She's pretty financially set to our knowledge. Besides making more money or that itch of a coach from turning a program from not to the top to the top, what's driving her?
It's a good question. I think she still is driven by the losses. She hasn't won an SEC championship yet.
Hmm.
Um, Her team is not like super mega undefeated. They're not sticking every single landing in every single competition. I think from a gymnastics standpoint, I'm sure she believes she has plenty of space to grow. Um, from a hmm. See, the thing is, like, it's not just money, I think Oklahoma not only is employing KJ, but like, okay, so let's put it this way. I think like in order to get KJ away from Oklahoma, because like there needs to be like obviously like a ton of money,
Yeah,
but also like one of the reasons why, we talked about this earlier in the episode, one of the reasons why Oklahoma is so good is because they have all these resources and all
yep,
this institutional support and the sports massages after every workout
yep.
and like the nutrition and the like I think like OU has one of the biggest gymnastics program budgets in the country. Like not only are they paying KJ, they're investing in the program. And that's not necessarily a given for like a women's program,
Yep.
if they go to another university. So yeah, I think to poach KJ, you need a good offer. You need to make a good offer. And then you also need to show her and convince her that you are going to support her and give her athletes what they need in order to be as successful as possible. And that doesn't stop with the salary. So,
Yeah, because it kind of goes to the thing what I said last podcast about like how much does it cost to fund a national title contending team?
I think it was like 2 million a year.
Yes.
Like somebody posted the budgets of Oklahoma for like women's gymnastics and men's gymnastics. And for women, it was higher than for the men's team, but I think the women's team is a little bit high. Well, the leotards are so much more expensive.
All right.
There are plenty of reasons, but
So yeah,
um,
with that being said, too, like $2 million to fund a national, I mean that's the benchmark. If you want to get to a certain level, that's how much you have to spend. I can almost guarantee Minnesota wasn't spending that much in their
mhm,
thing. They just had a run of runs, which is obviously showing it's possible, but it's like, I mean, I work so Oklahoma, LSU, Florida, just talked about Georgia. You see those teams that are paying their coaches top dollar. I mean, that's what you want to do. If that's what you got to do to win, I mean, you got to have a good coach. You don't have a good coach, you ain't going nowhere.
mhm.
So, and if you don't have a good coach who can coach, or you don't have a good recruiter, or don't have a good recruiter and a coach, you ain't gonna go anywhere because these kids aren't just gonna come to your school just because you gotta, especially nowadays, you gotta give them the pitch.
You
You gotta
do.
tell them, wow. I mean, now in this day and age, some of them aren't even worried about getting better or winning. They're like, hey, how much NIL am I gonna get? I mean, it is what it is. But sir, I do want to say, even though we were talking about the coverage and all of that, I do want to give credit because this championship on ABC set a record with 1.1 million viewers. According to
Really?
ESPN PR, it was the most viewed gymnastics meet ever on ESPN
Wow, that's
net.
fantastic. And they did it without Jordan Childs.
Yep, peaked at 1.7, also highest ever, up 10% year to year. So yeah, just want to throw that out there that it was the highest watched one ever, which
Wow.
is
That's amazing to me because I was kind of worried. Honestly, I was worried after Livy Dunn graduated.
mhm,
I know she brought a lot of eyeballs to the
Yep.
sport and got a lot of people invested in the sport and watching the
Yep.
sport who wouldn't normally be. And so I was concerned after she graduated who would stick around. So I love hearing that. I love hearing that the fandom and the watchers are still thriving and new fans are being brought in. Even not fans, just like people watching. I love that, these superstars being in gymnastics and being in NCAA and bringing new eyeballs to the sport.
Hmm.
Um, the attention isn't leaving because they're leaving. So that, gives me hope. I've always believed in gymnastics as a sport and is being like inherently entertaining and inherently something people can get behind and get excited about. So I love hearing those numbers and seeing that that's the case.
Yeah, I think Livy was the start, obviously, because there was not a bigger game in gymnastics than Livy done at the time, and ESPN saw it with remarkability. And it's also one of those things like if you have gymnastics, it's a very age-old concept. If you have something on more viewing ways for people to watch, they are going to be able to watch it. Now it's up to you to make the quality good, but it's just normal. Have it be able to be watched and you're good. So I think just seeing those numbers too in 2026, like 1.1, peaking at 1.7 on the 18th, which is, that's a Saturday. That's the other thing too. It's a Saturday. People are doing whatever and whatnot. People out, parties, whatever, birthday parties, especially since we're getting into that summertime. And for women's gymnastics to peak at 1.7, it's amazing. Now you see those numbers. Next year, can we peak at 2 and just keep going?
Mhm.
So, Sarah, anything else?
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's an exciting season. Also, I want to give a shout out to LSU because they did come very, very, very close. And they were a
They.
team, yeah, they were a team that looked like they were, I think it was actually Ronda Rousey's mother who said this to me for the first time. Like,
Hmm.
she knows when a team is going to, or like an individual, a fighter or athlete is going to like about to have something big happen to them
Hmm.
because like when they lose, they're upset. The more upset somebody is, or the more upset a team is and heartbroken a team is for coming just up short,
Hmm.
that's an indicator that big things are coming. LSU is heartbroken that they came so close. So I'll leave it at that for LSU. They're one to watch. Um, and yeah, just shout out to all the teams. Florida, unfortunately, had a tough final. Keeps happening to them. It's so sad because they have all the talent in the world. But yeah, overall, like big thank you as always to the gymnasts. 'Cause we couldn't follow this, we couldn't watch this without their hard work and their dedication for most of their lives. So that's how I like to end every season, and I'll end it again this season with a big thank you to the gymnasts.
That being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you for following us throughout this gymnastics season. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe wherever you listen. If you want to compare the real bracket to what we did last podcast, I was live stream. You can obviously go there and check that out and compare where we got right, what we got wrong, and go on from there. But with that being said, thank you everyone, and y'all take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.